Hello and welcome to the Sangat TV Politics Show. Today we are with Ian Jenkins from the Liberal Democrats. Hello Ian.
Hi, good evening.
So Ian, in a few minutes, tell us why you are standing, in which constituency, and why you feel your party has the public's best interests in place.
Okay, fine, thank you. I'm standing in Wolverhampton North East for the Liberal Democrats. I've stood before for the party in the Midlands, only in the Midlands, and I'm standing because I believe in what the party has to say. Primarily, you can count it in one phrase: social justice. I think for too long, if you like, this country of ours has become too unfair, where people who perhaps need a hand up have been given a kicking down instead. And we as a party want to try and redress that. Secondly, of course, and it's written through our manifesto and through our philosophy as a whole, is in all things put freedom first. We believe in freedom for the individual, and we'll do what we can to protect the rights of the individual against, perhaps when the state comes marching in, we will look after the interests of the ordinary working person. Social justice, by the way, means about just that we think that perhaps in some ways some people are badly dealt with by the state. Pensioners perhaps in the past have had a pretty rough deal from successive governments. And so they're a group of people we want to try and look after the interests of. Similarly with other groups who are disadvantaged, we want to try to see what we can do to help them. That's why when we were in the coalition, one of our policies was to introduce a pupil premium, where schools which were not doing so well, where they were underfunded, got a helping hand from the government in terms of extra funding to help with their achievements and attainments.
Thank you very much. What do you think the Sikh community brings to the UK?
Well, I think I said I went to the Vaisakhi Mela in Wolverhampton a couple of weeks ago, and we had a great time there, and I spoke to a lot of people. And because I've read the Sikh manifesto, and there's a lot of that I agree with. But I'm happy to say that I think it's, in one word, it's positivity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm in the glass trade.
Yep.
I've been in the glass trade for many years, and now the glass trade is specifically, there's a lot of people from Sikh background running companies in that, and it's been a boost. It's been tremendous for that particular industry in terms of providing more jobs and a better attitude as well, going forward, looking to try and be entrepreneurial, and that the entrepreneurial spirit is very strong amongst the Sikh community, which is great.
So how is your party best placed to serve the Sikh community?
Well, we have to, I think, treat everyone, not just the Sikh community, as if they're going to benefit from our policies. I wouldn't want to try and specialise certain policies for Sikh people only. It's not like that. Although there are things which I want to try and achieve. One of them, for example, we still need to address the problem we had with, well, not a problem, the issue of the genocide in 83.
84.
Sorry, I beg your pardon,
Yeah.
84. Time plays tricks with me. When the then Conservative government, I think, connived with Mrs. Gandhi's government over what happened, and the subsequent inquiry tried to excise or erase certain aspects which would have implicated the British government in what happened. We need another inquiry, we need to find out what happened then back in 84 and what the involvement was of the British government.
You know, an inquiry's fine, and a report's fine, but what action could the Lib Dems and yourself take against the people in the UK that were involved, and in India, for example?
I'm not well placed to know what would happen in India, in Indian politics. I'm not well versed in it, I'm sorry. But I am well versed in British politics, and I think if we knew what was going on and who was responsible, mind you, having said that, it was 43 years ago, so maybe the people involved are now not with us. But I'd like to know. I think the Sikh people have a right to know who was involved and why.
Okay, that's fine. Saying that, we've had reports like the Chilcot report, which came out. It cost £10 million, and we didn't. There was no justice in my eyes and in many people's eyes of anything. Tony Blair did what he wanted to, and the Labour Party got away with it.
Iraq War, you remember?
The Iraq War, yeah.
Iraq War.
I mean, what was the Lib Dem policy on that? What was your stance?
My stance was that. That is my original poster from walking down the streets of London with 1.5 million people on that cold February day, in 2003 to say no to the illegal Iraq war. I stood alongside Charles Kennedy and Shirley Williams and other Liberal Democrat MPs and thousands of other members of the party who demonstrated to say that that war was illegal. We had wanted no part of it, and we were the only party, the only large party in Parliament to say no to that illegal war. This thing about weapons of mass destruction was a complete lie. We all knew it was a lie. It was got up to allow Tony Blair to carry on his grovelling attitude to George W. Bush. And we as a country, and 168 soldiers dead as a result, British soldiers and thousands of Iraqis dead as a result as well.
195,000 civilian casualties.
Probably more than that.
That's the reported.
Yes. Whilst we had to do something to help the Kurdish community, in my view, we should have continued with the no-fly zone. And secondly, we definitely had to let Hans Blix continue his search to find these invisible weapons of mass destruction. They wouldn't have been found, and that would have made life difficult for George Bush. But the UN then would have had to have stepped in and created a more logical solution to it all, without the bloodshed that occurred.
So I mean, just speaking about the Chilcot inquiry, I've got a summary here, and the reason why the Lib Dems were so right in having that stance. I mean, looking back at it now, even I was getting brainwashed by the whole media and the whole George Bush and the Blair, and we needed to go to war. I mean, the basics of the report, there was 12 points: that war was not the last resort; it was chosen before peaceful options were exhausted. Number 2, Saddam Hussein was not a threat to the UK. Number 3, there was no proof that Saddam had any weapons of mass destruction. Number 4, and the real highlight here, was Blair told Bush, I'm with you no matter. Before any report, before any checks.
What did Bush say to Blair? Yo, Blair, at that dinner, as if he was his little hireling that he would drag along with him, his poodle. Yes, we were taken along with the Americans on that one, and it was utterly disgraceful. The weapons of mass destruction scenario was placed on this dodgy dossier, which turned out to be somebody's almost like A-level homework about some mining in Niger. It was completely bizarre that should be then conflated into such a casus belli to go to war in Iraq. Same applies to a lesser extent of Afghanistan. I'm never one who shies away from taking action where it's necessary. When this country when Tony Blair sent troops into Sierra Leone, it was a short campaign, a successful one. Kicked out the warlords who were abusing the rights of the people of Sierra Leone, kicked them out and installed a democratic government. That for me was absolutely a good thing to do. There are times when you have to take military action, and I don't resile from that. But Iraq was a complete con.
But the con is, going back to the issues, he picked and chose the evidence he wanted to give Parliament. Jack Straw and the cabinet knew about it as well. He was warned as well before that the war would fuel terror, and we only have to look at Iraq and Syria and what's happening there, and the impact on other countries throughout the world because of this. The military were unprepared. There was no legal case for war. There was no plans to build Iraq afterwards, which is really disgusting. It cost £11.83 billion, and the real thing is it destroyed our trust in politicians. I mean, the media and the politicians, they got us all worked up to the fact that this is the right thing, and Saddam Hussein was such a bad person.
I wonder whether we would have had Daesh now had we not gone into Iraq. I doubt it. Perhaps so too. Not to the extent it is now. We would not have seen Daesh in Iraq and Syria. I'm certain of it.
Well, we had no right to go because Saddam Hussein and Iraq have got their own way of doing things, their own democracy or their own country or their own. We can't implement our Western policies and Western views, which, looking back now, were wrong.
Can I take issue to a certain extent with that?
Okay, sure.
Right. Can we take issue with Saudi Arabia?
Okay.
We're quite happy to sell arms to Saudi Arabia, which they are using to bomb innocent people, Houthi people, in Western Yemen. Now, maybe we have a right there to say, oh, we will intervene there because Saudis, you shouldn't be doing that. Therefore, we will, part of our manifesto, by the way, we will not sell any more arms to Saudi Arabia whilst it's continuing this sort of campaign to impose genocide on its neighbours.
Yep, but money talks.
Not to Liberal Democrats, it doesn't. We will carry on with this ethical foreign policy. And we cannot continue to go along to Saudi Arabia and kowtow to their undemocratic, cruel government.
Okay. I mean, all these ideas sound great. And I remember the last live television election debate that you had that was taking place. I think it was 2015 when it was Nick Clegg, David Cameron, and I think Ed Miliband as well. And I remember Nick Clegg was a clear winner in that debate. He came across so honestly and so openly. But the problem that happened after that was you lost so many seats and you didn't do that well.
Right, I'm hoping I'm coming across as honest and open tonight, by the way, because I'll tell you what I think and just have, and I'll carry on doing that. Nick was honest and open about it, but, and by the way, can I talk about the coalition?
Sure.
We were in a situation
back
in 2010 where the country was in a lot of trouble. Financially, banks were failing a lot. We were in dead trouble, going backwards. We had to stabilise the situation. There had to be a government, and that government had to have a majority in the House of Commons. We went to Labour first and asked them whether or not we could do a deal to continue.
Okay.
Harriet Harman and John Prescott would have none of it. So it is quite simply, we went to both parties.
So you did get both. And what was Labour's response when you were asking for your measures?
Go away.
Okay.
We were left with, we went to the Conservatives and we received with open arms, provided we had to perform a deal on certain policies. We insisted on there being a pupil premium for schools. So I say that schools in deprived areas could receive more money, and that occurred. We insisted upon, for example, that tax for ordinary people, the lowest rates of tax would be scrapped, and so now you don't have to pay tax until you're earning, get on for 12,000 a year. That's taken 3,000 people out of tax altogether. That was one thing we insisted upon. We insisted upon sustainability in energy, the Green Energy Bank. Green measures, we insisted on those. And as soon as the coalition was over, the Conservatives sold off the Green Energy Bank to the commercial bank. So in all what we tried to do, we were successful up to a point, but then the Conservatives have done what they can to backtrack from that.
Do you think if you had gone in coalition with Labour it would have been chaos? Because I think Gordon Brown was in charge, and he even said that Arsenal even stand down, and he was so desperate to get a coalition in place in the end. Gordon
Brown was extremely unpopular, and in my view, I have to say, I think he's one of the worst prime ministers we've ever had.
Why would you say that? Remember, we could have Jeremy Corbyn. So
true. And I go back to first Alec Douglas Hume, and I'm saying those words advisedly. I think handling of the economy led us really down a creek. Don't forget him withdrawing the 10p tax rate, which helped the poorest people. Just withdrew that. One thing I'll never forgive him for is PFI, private finance initiatives with hospitals. Building hospitals, but then doing deals with private firms built the hospitals, and then we have to pay these private firms for decades, which is costing the NHS billions.
But then how come Labour keep going on about, the Conservatives are privatising the NHS and they're to blame for this and that, when it was a Labour policy? Tuition fees was a Labour policy as well.
They started tuition fees, exactly, yes.
So they have. So can you explain a bit more about your before we go to the manifesto, a really important thing that Lib Dems are always asking for is your political and constitutional changes that you'd want to get in place. With the fact that certain people think that it doesn't matter the amount of votes that you get, it's almost first past the poll. So you could have 4 million votes and have only one MP, such as UKIP did, or you could have 300,000 and have votes and have 15, 20 MPs in Parliament.
Well, quite impatient the thought of me looking after the interests of UKIP. Well, they're just about finished now anyway, aren't they? But having said that, they should have had, in fairness, the MPs which their vote dictated. The Green Party is the same. They should have far more than they have. We should have had more. there will inevitably, if you have PR, there'll be more coalition-style government.
Yep.
It happens in other countries, happens in Germany and Holland and places, and it works perfectly well. So it happens at a local level, it's all wrong as well. In Wolverhampton, for example, out of the 60 councillors, I think it's 49 are Labour, and 10 Tories. Well, that doesn't reflect the way people vote in that city. It's unfair. So Labour have got, in Wolverhampton, have got a continuing Politburo which decides undemocratically on the policies for the city. And the same occurs in reverse, where there are conservative, Staffordshire for example, a big conservative council, where other parties don't get a look in. It is not fair.
Okay. Can you explain your manifesto to us a bit more, because it doesn't get as much. One thing I noticed, the Lib Dems, that when Labour launched their manifesto, well, they didn't even launch it. It got leaked by someone in their cabinet.
Matter of opinion. I don't know who launched it, but somebody did.
Yep.
This is our manifesto. It's not massive. It's a trimmed down, easy remembered facts sort of thing about the manifesto. It starts off because the main thing for ourselves is about Europe.
Yep.
We are fairly desperate about the situation with regard to Europe. And we think that a hard Brexit, which Mrs May now apparently seems to want, and let's not forget, by the way, that before the referendum she was in favour of staying in, now she's in favour of coming out.
But that's what the people voted though, wasn't it?
Well, she says that she's strong and stable. She seems to flip-flop all the time. She said he wasn't going to call a general election a few weeks ago. Well, then he was going to call a general election. Why did she call the general election? That's,
you know, I'm curious. Why did she was blaming the Lib Dems, and she was blaming Labour for not letting Brexit negotiations happen smoothly on our side before we even get to Europe.
She was blaming the opposition for being the opposition, for doing their job. And I think that's outrageous. That's what the opposition are there for. We have a democracy in this country, which means the people on the other side have a right to say, hold up, I don't like that, I'm going to stop and vote against it.
Okay.
She was unable to accept that because she's not that democratic, in fairness. Okay. Your question was again, sorry?
Well, my question is just on the EU referendum, because you brought that up in your first thing. So Lib Dems are saying you want a second EU referendum. Is that what you're... I'm confused, because what I've seen is you...
Not really.
Go on.
The policy is, let's assume it's Mrs May who goes to Brussels and negotiates the deal.
Yep.
What if the deal is something that is hard Brexit, which means extra tariffs on goods, not allowing British companies to have access to the European market? Excuse me, sorry. Don't like that deal very much. What if it includes there to be a hard border between Northern and Southern Ireland? Don't like that very much either. We weren't told this at the time of the referendum. It wasn't
told anything really.
It was just in or out, without any qualification. We were told we were going to get 350 million a week to go into the National Health Service on the side of their bus.
Yep.
Where's that? So consequently, we think we were sold a pup. So it'd be a good idea to let her go to the European Union, see what she comes back with, and then say to the people, right, there's the deal. Do you like it?
So
yes or no?
So it is a second referendum based on what she's got from Europe.
Some people say that this is the second referendum.
Yeah.
And we're asking for another one after that, but that's a matter of conjecture.
So 3 you're asking for, or 2?
Well, this now is the second referendum. This like the general election. Some would say.
Okay.
Are you with me?
Yeah. Well, that's the reason for it. But for her to get any deal in Brexit negotiations with Germany, with France, and with the major players in Europe, she needs to have backing at home from the parties without, too many silly sort of points that they might not think that are appropriate.
It's not a few silly points.
Okay,
it's on fundamental matters.
Okay.
Like access to the European markets for our goods. Already prices are going up.
Yep.
As having the glass trade, we've had a 9% price increase in glass since the referendum day. Okay. I know when you go abroad now, you want to buy euros.
But would you not be able to get
sunk?
Would you not be able to get your glass components from other countries outside the EU?
It's unlikely because it has to go so far.
Yep.
It's not as good. If you want your car parts for your BMW or your Fiat or in my case a Peugeot, it's going to go up in price. People are going to have to put up.
But do you not think, like for example, it's in Germany's interest that if they want to do any trade with us with their BMWs and Mercedes or Audis and what have you, bring them over to UK, then obviously if they want to allow them cars into and their parts into the UK, it'll be the same for Jaguar going in the other direction and Land Rover.
Well, let's see, shall we? Let's see. And if that is the case, great.
Yep.
But what if it isn't? What if they do impose tariffs? Then at that stage, this is where we say, okay, now we know what's going to happen. Now we'll vote on it. Because I tell you, for one thing, I spoke to somebody from Airbus Industries in France last year, and I'm convinced that Airbus Industries are going to close their factory in Clwyd and take 6,500 jobs with it.
Okay, but then why did people vote Brexit? What was the major reason for that? Because my point of view was that a lot of it was done on immigration, wasn't it?
I stood in the street in Dudley Street in Wolverhampton and asked people a question.
Yep.
And I'm sorry to have to tell you.
In all races, or just a mixture of people, was it all?
I'm sorry to have to tell you, the number of times people said to me, Enoch was right.
Yep.
And it's about a dislike of anybody who's not English.
But would you say it's certain communities that have come and find it hard to integrate, or they've got different lifestyles in certain parts of Europe, where they have these same problems wherever they go to Germany, France, and
it's something more fundamental than that.
Okay.
It is much more fundamental. They don't like living next door to somebody who's not like them.
Okay.
And it's as simple as that. And I'm disgusted with it, but that's how it is.
You think that was the reason?
It's a reason for some.
But do you think that's the reason why Labour...
In fairness, some of them, people said they didn't like the fact that we didn't have control over certain aspects of the European policy, even though, of course, that the British people had control over aspects of European government policy. It's a two-way thing.
But did you not think Europe's in trouble? I mean, they say the pigs of Europe, Portugal, Italy, Greece and Spain, which are in huge financial problems and are really going to be bailed out by Germany, and even France is taken from the pot. So it just seems like it's helping certain countries, but Europe as a whole is nowhere near as strong as us, for example.
Have you checked the growth figures for the last 3 months?
No, go on.
Europe 0.5%, Britain 0.2%.
But obviously that's because of Brexit and the fact that the negotiation problems that we're going to have until then. We might be able to get individual trades with America, with different worldwide countries that we couldn't get when we were doing the trade negotiations with Europe as our main.
Okay, I'll give you an example. I used to work in the steel industry many years ago.
Yeah.
America tried to sabotage the Italian steel industry.
Okay.
Before Italy became stronger through the European Union, by dumping steel on the Italian market. Thanks to the European Union, they stepped in and prevented them doing so, and said if you try and dump anything onto the Italian market, the same applies throughout the European Union. So the strength of Europe can compete, can make sure that the Americans... Give a good example of that with America. GM Foods. The European Union has said, despite the power of likes of Monsanto and Novartis, the big American pharmaceutical corporations, we don't wish to have GM foods in the European Union, whether it's in Scotland or in Greece. Throughout the European Union, you're not having GM foods over here.
Yep.
And we stuck together and were able to resist Novartis, etc., because we're acting together. As individual countries, we'd be picked off one by one.
Okay. So Ian, I think our time's coming to an end now.
Right. Okay.
Can I just ask you, can you give a summary of why you should be voted into your constituency and why you think your party would be best for the UK?
Thanks very much. In my constituency, the first thing is I do live in it, unlike some of my competitors. I know Wolverhampton very well. As regards to the Liberal Democrats, I think we're the only party which is genuinely in favour of changing Britain's future for the better. I'm scared stiff about a Tory government coming in which will hit pensioners, triple lock, and about winter fuel payments. They'll hit school children. One of my local schools is set to lose 16 teachers because of Tory cuts to education. And I'm concerned about the environment. The Tories have no interest whatsoever in protecting the environment. They are prepared, however, to go after such ridiculous things as, for sake of argument, fox hunting, to bring back fox hunting. What on earth are we doing talking about fox hunting when we should be trying to get our country straight?
Okay. So Ian, thanks a lot for your time.
My pleasure.
Thank you all for watching the Politics Show on Sangat TV, and goodbye.